doctor would be. So I love that book. The other book I read, which was fascinating too, was Patton, Second World War, the U.S. Army general.
Okay.
And a lot of his diary notes talking about his experience. And I just felt like every single person should have to, like young person should have to read that book. There again, this is my perspective. Because our world, everybody's so soft. Everybody's so pathetic. Nobody has like, it's just like, do you realize how you've been spoon-fed? Like to read the stories distinctly of people like just literally freezing to death, getting their heads, watching their friends literally just head off, like in the trenches. Right. And, and they didn't see it in retrospect like we do now where they won the war.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in the, like this battle was specifically about a distinct battle, the Bulge in Belgium.
Okay, yeah.
And it was like so intense. The other thing that was interesting, and there's people that probably understand this story way better than me and understand this character, Patton. He died very soon after the war. I think within a couple of years he died. And he talks in the book, and I was sharing this with Marie and she was mortified to some degree, but it was just like, I could identify with some parts of his character where like he was just pumped with the battle and the challenge. And then after the war, like, where was his purpose? And didn't he said it? He didn't know how his whole identity was being a U.S. Army general, and he was a good one. But the other thing I thought was fascinating, and this is a part where again in our culture where everybody's just watching and criticizing an armchair quarterback like that. That's the world we live in. Like he did things that were definitely offside and probably could be questioned. One incident in particular, he admitted where he went in because of his ego, wanted to get somewhere first and just slaughtered. Like people just got slaughtered at his watch. But in general, a lot of his methods were, probably frowned upon a bit in the military where they're very structured and very rule oriented. And he was a bit of a cowboy. But I just thought, like it's a good word for our culture in our time where everybody's keen to be critical. You know how it is. Like we're all just watching, and even with this flight thing now, this recent plane crash, right, where the plane flipped upside down. Yeah. Like everybody's just like has an opinion. It has to be, not everybody, but the people that are in that space on Twitter and on social media, either making fun or defending or like, just how about say nothing and things will come out as they do. And you don't need to have an opinion on everything. Like so, you could not know.
Also, there's I feel like a lack of grace. Like we're always making mistakes. Yeah. We're always screwing up in some area.
Grace, bingo.
Interesting. Okay.
So people that don't understand grace. So that I guess, anyways, the book in itself, I just feel like the amount of character that the people had of that, and there again, deep wounds. And I thought that was interesting too, right? Where I said to Marie, like so many of these guys would have been, well, they were doing such awful things, right? Like just literally doing the old bayonet thing, like First World War thing still, crazy. Right? Like, right? Other young men, like just, crazy. These guys are kids too, 19, 20, like just kids.
I wonder how much of like the effects of, the problems in our society today, especially our background, which is a Dutch background, are because of the war, where you have people that were like my grandma. So my dad's mom would have, I think she lost her dad at like 9 or 11 years old. She was in Rotterdam eating tulips, like trauma. Like my grandpa ran away from the Germans, like trauma. And like that filters down, right? You see it in the Jewish communities because of the Holocaust.
It does. And so Marie and I, we talked about that in the last week too. And I think it's similar to some degree. I would equate it to like residential schools and First Nation stuff where like obviously there's deep issues in that culture because of that and the way that they were treated. And it's fascinating. We even look at our own children, who have been in and out of birth parents' homes, foster homes, and then in our house. They have reasons for everything, but they still don't have an excuse, right? Like, you don't get to the end of your life. You don't get to at any point look at somebody and say, well, I was this, right? And there again, in our culture, it's a victim mentality. And it's like, so it's that balance of, hey, this is a great explanation. And yes, you do need grace, and you will get grace, hopefully, if people know your story, but you don't get to use it as a crutch or an excuse your whole life. And so, how do you, and obviously depending on the situation. And I mean, in that case, you're totally right. Like, that's what I was thinking. How do you go home as a young man in your late 20s, early 30s to your children after you've just witnessed all this? And even like, it's interesting. The most powerful moment from what I read in the book, and I'd be interested to know if people that have studied this history a lot more, was still when they got to the concentration camps in Poland and in Germany and stuff. And I think it was Germany, to see the impact that had. That still seemed to be the point where the guys who had been literally killing people ad nauseum just could not believe the atrocities that had been done, right? And went to go throw up behind the building.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that episode and were blessed by it, would you be willing to support the show? That would help a lot in creating more content, improving the quality of the content, putting the production value, getting more guests on, and me being able to spend more time and energy towards it. So if you're interested in doing that, you can click up here and it'll take you to a support page. But you can also subscribe to the podcast by clicking over here and doing that. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.